Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to see you all. My name is Malak Benton, and I'm a member of the AAHGS organization, Afro-American Historical Genealogy Society. I've been a member for about 5 years. I'm a family history researcher, and I'm a writer. I do quite a bit of research and very little writing. So my goal in 2025 is to switch that around. And I'd like you to ask me next year at this program if I'm doing better at that, okay? Who in the room is doing any kind of family research? Anything? Okay, that's just about every hand. And I want you to know, when you're holding that letter that your aunt sent you, when you hold a funeral program, you're doing family research. Okay? We're all involved in it at all times. So think about it as a part of what you do. Think about it as the recipe that you're using. Think about it. That's all family research. Okay, so we're all involved in this, and I encourage you to just expand and expand and expand. When I came to a program here many years ago, the person sitting at the AAHGS table was someone I consider my good friend now, and that's Tammy Ozier. She welcomed me. She listened to what I was talking about in terms of my early research, and she encouraged me to join this organization, and I've appreciated it ever since. And I have, as I mentioned to her this morning, kind of followed what she's doing and used that as a sort of guide for some of the research that I'm doing. She's been involved for over 20 years in looking at her enslaved and free ancestors going back to the mid-1700s. As a part of that, she's also a member of the hereditary society called the Sons and Daughters of the U.S. Middle Passage. She has a degree from a Black Studies degree from San Francisco State University, and her research is in several states: Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee, and Mississippi. And this is important. You may think I'm doing this stuff in Georgia, but people came to Georgia from someplace. So it's often interesting and involved to learn where those places were, learn how they got here and why they got here. Don't always assume things about how they got here. So it's good to see that she's doing that across the board. She's a frequent presenter at both local and national forums and discusses a lot of this kind of history and the genealogical and historical topics and process. She completed all kinds of courses with the Genealogical Institute, and a few years ago, she got a scholarship, the Frazine Taylor Scholarship. I got it the year after you got it, and I'm very proud to be able to join that. And she's also been a Genealogy Fellow for MDAH. She's a lifetime member of AAHGS, and I want to just put this little plug in. AAHGS is an encouragement society. We meet once a month. We're virtual. We have a few in-person meetings, but we encourage each other in our research. We talk about what we're doing. We talk about problems. Those famous brick walls people like to talk about, well, people are working on that, and people have solved some of those. And AAHGS is a place to do that on a Saturday afternoon for a couple of hours to learn from your peers. So it's a wonderful opportunity, and AAHGS has been a strong organization for us. Finally, she holds memberships in a variety of different organizations, and she's just a wonderful presenter. So I give you Tammy Ozier.
Okay, I don't know if I'm going to live up to that wonderful introduction, but I'm going to try. So I renamed this presentation. So if you were here really just to understand the correspondences in the Freedmen's Bureau, I'm going to talk a little bit about it. But I decided that I wanted to really give people tools that they can use to better utilize the records and get it to them quickly, or more quickly, I should say. So the name of this presentation is Finding More in the Freedmen's Bureau. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to give you an overview of the Freedmen's Bureau. I'm going to review a process that Robin mentioned that I talked about, which was finding Freedmen's Bureau records online. Then we're going to look at some tips and tools to help you in your research. We're going to review some sample records, and then we're going to conclude, and then we're going to open it up for questions, and we can talk about the whole part of the Freedmen's Bureau, even though I may not be talking about a record that you may have a question about. So here's the disclaimer. All the content shared, displayed, and otherwise presented during this presentation are the intellectual property of the presenter, me, and is protected by law. Please refrain from photographing, video recording, screen capturing, or otherwise copying these materials, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So please abide by that. Now, where did the Bureau operate? The commissioner of the Bureau, the director, was in Washington, D.C. He was Major General Oliver Otis Howard, and he was assigned as the Bureau Commissioner. Now, this Otis Howard is a person that Howard University is actually named after, if you're not aware. The assistant commissioners, sub-assistant commissioners, and agents conducted the daily operations in the former Confederate states, the border states, and the District of Columbia. So that's where they operated, and you can see that in the shaded area. Now, what is the Freedmen's Bureau? Now, the official name of the Freedmen's Bureau is the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Land. It was established in 1865, and the official dates of the Bureau is 1865 to 1872. Now, it was established by an act to really continue to help provide relief for freedmen. Now, when they say freedmen in the Freedmen's Bureau, they're talking about the formerly enslaved. When they say refugees, they are talking about whites who were also impacted by the war. There are pre-Bureau records that date back as far back as 1863. And those records are for Mississippi and Louisiana and Virginia, Fort Monroe for Virginia. And now the Bureau was talking about the pre-Bureau records that were found from Mississippi, Louisiana, and Fort Monroe, Virginia. And then this record set is part of NYRA's Record Group 105. And there's also a similar record set called the Freedmen's Bank. It was around the same time, but it's a different record set. That's Record Group 101 in NYRA also. Now, why? Why do we want to even look at these records? Why are these records important? I have some ideas. I think one, when you think about the formerly enslaved, the first census that the formerly enslaved were enumerated by name was the 1870 census. So these records, again, date from as early as 1863 to 1872. So there's a space in time immediately after being enslaved. This is a record set that actually hold records that could specifically name your ancestors. So that's why this is a really important record set. The other thing is it can help connect families that were separated during slavery. Some of the records that you can find in the Bureau is people trying to get back together, families that were actually separated. My mother was in South Carolina. I was shipped to Louisiana. I want to get back to her in South Carolina, for example. These records can also, you may be able to identify the former enslaver. You know, they may offer you documentation on that where you can then try to follow your family through the enslavers' records and understand more about your family. Historical context. This record set has an excellent documentation about what was going on. What were some of the outrages that were going on? What was some of the relief efforts that were going on during this time? And then here, talking about the relief services, it does give some of the services that the Bureau was in charge of. What were they were doing? Providing providing food, providing transportation, as I mentioned. So again, this record really holds a lot of good information that may be important to you if you're doing research for this period. Now, this is just the type of records that you can find. And I'm going to try to talk not about all of these, but I wanted to just give you an idea. There are registers. Registers here are important. It's almost like a census. They may be a register in a place. It gives the name, the ages. They may be in family groups, so you'll be able to see mother, father, sister, brother, that type of information. So registers may also have the former enslaver. Where were you enslaved? Who was your enslaver? Some of those registers and some of the documents actually have that information. You may find information like court proceedings. Court proceedings is a important one because there you may see the disputes that was going on. And a lot of times what was happening, instead of going to the actual government, they actually had court proceedings within the Bureau, and you had that documentation. Rations list. We talked about rations, giving food, giving clothing. You'll see, this person got 2 pounds of bacon, or whatever amount of pounds of cornmeal. And in that, they may document who was in the household by name, or maybe you just see 2 children. You may see that they were elderly or sickly. That type of information can be found. One thing that I do want, labor contracts is one that is widely, when the Freedmen's Bureau is discussed, that is probably the go-to record. Labor contracts a lot of times are with people who are, signing a contract for their labor. And a lot of times they are signing contracts possibly with their former enslaver. So in those documents, you actually get to see the conditions that they had to work under. You'll see how much they were getting paid, little to nothing, right? You'll be able to, a lot of times the labor contracts may have family groupings. So again, that's another place where you may find some detailed information. You may also find here the different surnames that your people may have used, right? And the way that you'll be able to find them, you see the same given names, but the surnames have changed over, a period of time. So again, this is a place that you may be able to find that. I'm going to talk just a little bit now about the letters sent, letters received, and endorsements. I know that was going to be the bulk of my discussion, but I decided just to change it because I wanted to give you more of an idea of really how to dig into the records. But when you see letters sent, those are letters that are sent by a particular office, right? So letters sent from the Atlanta office to the Columbus office. So those are letters sent. The Columbus office is getting a letter from Atlanta, that they are receiving that letter, right? So letters sent, letters received. And you may actually have the same information, like if you're researching Columbus and Atlanta, you may find a letter sent and a letter received in each of those offices, right? And then endorsements really is a response to a letter that was received. And instead of writing a separate letter, they actually take the letter that was received, they turn it over and write over an endorsement of what they're going to do. And the endorsement is basically the action that was taken. And then they're either going to forward it to another office or they're going to send it back to the sender. Okay, so I know I might get some questions about that, but just wanted to give you that little tidbit. The other things, military claims, you're talking about the colored troops. A lot of their records can be found in the Bureau. And we'll talk about some more, but marriage records, hospital records, transportation. Transportation is really one that I find fascinating. You may see a transportation request in North Carolina for 100 people. Those 100 people are being asked to go and work in Mississippi, right? And a lot of those records are actually in family groups. A lot of times they would put their names on that. They would tell you where they're coming from and where they're going. So that's an interesting one if you're trying to find out why you have family in North Carolina and family in Mississippi. This may be the bridge for that, okay? So this is the organizational chart for the Bureau. So what I want to emphasize here, at each level within the Bureau, there are records, right? Each level had records. Now, of course, the field, we have records at the commissioner office. His office was really national oversight, circulars, regulations, letters sent, letters received, reports sent or reports received, right? That's the kind of information there you may find. Assistant commissioners were the state, they provided the state oversight. So the assistant commissioners were in charge of a state. So you had an assistant commissioner for Georgia, assistant commissioner for Louisiana, assistant commissioner for South Carolina, et cetera. They provided state oversight. They distributed the circulars. They pushed up and down the chain of command. Again, reports, letters. People could actually send information or letters directly to the assistant commissioner. So you actually may even find personal information at that particular level. Next, you will have the superintendents, which were over education. And then the sub-assistant commissioners who work underneath the assistant commissioners, and they provided oversight for districts, counties, parishes, and they operated out what was called subordinate field offices. And then lastly, you had the agents and the staff officers that operated out of field office. And that was really where people got to touch the Bureau. There were your local representatives in the city and towns, okay? So this is a schedule of the microfilm publication numbers for the Freedmen's Bureau. So let's just kind of talk about what you see here. Some of the things to keep in mind, each set of records is called a series. So each set of records within the Bureau is called a series. Each series has an M label that stands for microfilm. And each M-labeled number of series has an accompanying descriptive pamphlet, okay? Now, within each series are the microfilm reels. And then knowing the series and the pertinent reels can get you to the records you seek, okay? So let's look at that a little closely. So each series aligns to a location. And you see that here, you see Alabama, you see Texas, you see Virginia, right? It also aligns to an organizational level. So you have records in the headquarters. You have the pre-bureau records, you have the field offices. So again, it aligns to an organizational level. And then you have a unique series. It had a unique number, excuse me. Each series has a unique number. Now, one thing, let me just go back just really quickly. Now, for each series, there was a descriptive pamphlet. We're going to talk a little bit about the descriptive pamphlets, but just want to, again, get you kind of acclimated to what are these numbers and how they're organized and how it helps you to understand the how the records are organized. Now, an approach to finding people in the Freedmen's Bureau online, the records online, this is an approach that I talked about in a previous discussion. Here, we first start, which state are you researching? Then you need to learn the Bureau's history, the hierarchy, and the record types. Then you would read the descriptive pamphlet for the location that you're researching. Then you're going to kind of determine what kind of records do I think I'm looking for, right? Then you're going to get into those records. You're going to look and search the index records, and then you're going to browse those non-index records. So that's just a simple way to kind of systematically go to the records, okay? Now, I have provided to you in a handout this schedule. And this is the key online bureau links. These are the links, and this has been updated from the discussion that I did a few years back. NIRA still provides you with an overview. The descriptive pamphlets can be found there. NIRA owns the information. That's the National Archives Records Administration, NIRA. Mapping the Freedmen's Bureau, again, shows the map, and you can get to this descriptive pamphlet. It's there. It also would have, like, for each location, it'll show you what the pertinent reels may be. May also give you the descriptive pamphlets, articles, again, give you information, and you'll see a little bit when we look at the maps. SOVA, the Smithsonian Online Virtual Archives, is another way that you can actually access the records. It shows, now one thing that SOVA has been doing, they have an ongoing project where they are doing a full text transcription of all of the records in the Bureau. So this is an excellent place to look. Again, these are the same information, just a different place to find it, right? Now, in association with SOVA, there is a Freedmen's Bureau search portal that is the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. And if you know that the record, for example, that you're researching, the state that you're researching the records have been fully transcribed, then this is an easy way for you to access those records by going to this particular site. Ancestry.com, they continue to add records that are indexed that you can utilize. And one thing here, the records at Ancestry for this particular database is free. Now, some of their databases, you do need a subscription, but for the Freedmen's Bureau records at Ancestry, they are free, okay? FamilySearch.org, again, another free resource. And one thing that they have here, they have information, and all of the sites have information on what is the Freedmen's Bureau, how to get there, gives you all the history. But again, you can need to look at the descriptive pamphlets, and Family Search is a place that you can go. Now, Family Search has also an associated link, if you will, that's called Discover Freedmen's Bureau. And it's just a way for them to research the Freedmen's Bureau records directly by going to this discoverfreedmens.org. That will take you directly to the Freedmen's Bureau records that are on Family Search. So just, again, a different way to get to the same place. And then I am going to tell you that there is this website called Black Pearls of Genealogy. Please do not sleep on that. That has the Freedmen's Bureau, and what they've done, they have kind of cut it, parsed it out, put it in ways that may make it easier for you to find it. So I didn't talk much about it, but I wanted to at least make sure you knew that that's a great place. If you're doing any kind of research, particularly for African American research, that's an excellent, excellent source. Now, what are the Freedmen's Bureau descriptive pamphlets, or the DPs, as I'm calling them here? They are guides that help you understand the content of the microfilm reels that relate to the different levels within the Bureau. They are references key information from the commissioner, from the assistant commissioners, from the agents. It details how the records are organized in the state that you are researching. And there is a descriptive pamphlet for each series, as I discussed. And you must read the descriptive pamphlets to effectively navigate the Bureau records. Now, this is just a sample. This is the descriptive pamphlet for Georgia. And this is the first page for the Assistant Commissioner series. So if you pull out some of the information, you will see that that has 36 rolls of microfilm, is what it's saying there. It tells you, it starts then to talk about the records that you can find in this descriptive pamphlet. So it'll give you the timeline, like this says from 1865 to 1869. Okay. Other information that you'll find out: who were the assigned officers? What is the timeline for their assignment? Again, this trying to give you an idea of, when you're looking at a descriptive pamphlet, some of the information that you can pull. And then lastly, you can find this, what are the actual records that you can find? So here they're saying in this particular series, you can find orders and circulars, and it'll give you a description of that information. Now, I didn't give you all the different types of, but I just want to, again, kind of show you, when you go to the descriptive pamphlets, it's telling you what's the history of the Bureau in your state, who were the officers, what kind of records you can find. And again, it's a guide to help you maneuver the records in your state. Okay, now, this is tip number one. Always take a moment to study and review your state's descriptive pamphlet to ensure you do not overlook important clues or information. And then now I'm going to say, you can also use the search and find functionality if you do that on the PDF. Now, for those who are staunch, you must look at and study the descriptive pamphlets. I'm still saying that, but I'm saying, if you want to have, I don't want to say a shortcut, but just a little nudge, you can use the search and find on the PDF. Just use that functionality. And this is telling you can look up is your city, parish, or your town actually mentioned in the descriptive pamphlet. You can identify the sub-assistant district for your particular county or parish. Not all descriptive pamphlets have that information, but at least you're able to use that search and find to see if what you're looking for is going to be there. You can identify personnel for your area. Now, I left this in here, I was going to take it out, but I said, no, let me put it in here because this is important, especially even though we're not talking specifically about correspondences. If you know who was the officer that was for your area, instead of looking for your area, you can look up records that person actually sent, like the registers that they may have sent, the reports, and the letters they may have received or they sent. So this is another way to get kind of used to, this is my area, and these are the people that worked in my area. So by kind of not just going by the place, but also kind of looking at that person, it may lead you to some information about your family. And then again, like I said, descriptive pamphlet may be saying, what kind of information? Can I find rations information, for example, for my research area. Now, this is just and I know you can't see this, and I'm going to pull this up a little bit, but if you go to FamilySearch.org on the African American Freedmen's Bureau page, you scroll down to an area called Inventory of Records section. And there by state, it'll have, and I'm using this as an example, Alabama. And to the far right, you'll see the PDF for the series. So you see that in the example. This is a way for you to look at the descriptive pamphlets, how to go to the PDFs, and then extrapolate or get information quickly. But again, I'm not saying that replaces studying the descriptive pamphlet, but that may give you a quick insight on what's in the descriptive pamphlets. Okay? Now, where were my people? We're saying use the mapping the Freedmen's Bureau website to locate relevant records for your research area. And it's recommended if your particular research area is not actually called out on mapping the Freedmen's Bureau, to go to then the closest mapped area. So the closest office to where you're researching, you may be able to find the records for your research area. And you use the zoom in and out to locate the field office closest to your research area. And once you find it, you select that red tab, and within that red tab, it'll give you information like it'll tell you the roles, and I know it's small here, but it tells you the roles that are relevant for that location. It'll give you information like there may be articles, books, other relevant information that may help you to better understand how the Bureau operated in your research area. But what if your research location is not on the descriptive pamphlet and not on the map? Oh. Why can't you find your research area within the descriptive pamphlet or flagged on the mapping the Freedmen's Bureau site? Now, the reasons why they're not there, not all the field offices are listed on the descriptive pamphlets or identified on mapping the Freedmen's Bureau. And the reason may be maybe there was an office that was short-lived in your area, and it became incorporated in another field office. Maybe the agents may have been forcibly run out, harmed, or even killed. And operation in that area, this was discontinued. And maybe there were just nobody to man the office. There were no civilian or military personnel who was available to run that office. So even though, and I'll give you an example, there were situations where an office may have existed, and you go to look, they're not mentioned in the descriptive pamphlet, nor are they on mapping the Freedmen's Bureau map. This is some of the reasons why. Is there another way to find your research location, even if it's not mentioned in the descriptive pamphlet or flagged on the map? So this is the tip number 2. Find your sub-district to which your research area aligns. This will lead you to your records. So in most of the states, we talked about the assistant commissioner, and then he had assistant commissioners, sub-assistant commissioners, and then it could be even broken down further. And a lot of times the district would be called like the state, and the state would be broken down into sub-districts. And then you want to find out which sub-district your research location aligns to. And that's what I'm just saying what I'm talking about there. And so this is an example. This is my research area, Opelousas. And I know you can't see, but that's the circle area is Opelousas, okay? It is absent from the descriptive pamphlet and does not appear on the map. Opelousas is located in St. Landry Parish in Louisiana. Now, when we think about what the guidance is to just go to the nearest field office. So in my situation, Opelousas, the closest field office is actually in Lafayette, Louisiana, and I show that here. Okay, so I'm going to go to Lafayette and I'm going to look for my records. No, senora. I had to actually find and confirm where the Opelousas records were. And they were actually in the 3rd sub-district. And you see here where Opelousas is actually called out as part of the 3rd sub-district. And O.H. Violet is the person in charge of that of that area. And so when I looked at the descriptive pamphlet, wasn't there. And even though the districts the sub-districts are actually listed in the descriptive pamphlet, I had no idea where Opelousas, which sub-district Opelousas was actually, aligned to. So I had to look at the reports, look at the sub-districts, and actually see what cities and parishes were aligned to each of the sub-districts. So in my case, the sub-district was Franklin. And so what that means is that all of the records for that sub-district was actually sent to Franklin. Okay? I'm going to show you where Franklin is compared to where it is. So this is Opelousas. The closest field office is Lafayette. This is Franklin. So just by going to the closest field office, that wasn't going to get you to your records. So that's how you have to, this is just giving you an idea of not to be discouraged that you don't see your area, but this is a different way, that you can try to get there, okay? And these are just the steps that we just outlined. You need to make sure you understand where's your county or where's your parish, understand how the Freedmen's Bureau is organized in your state, and then try to identify your sub-district for your county and parish. And then also, again, I'm saying I want you to keep the names of the people that are in charge of your sub-district and your location so that you have an idea of if you want to just look at the people, and then review the records also at the assistant commissioner level and continue to move down the records just to see if you can find it. Okay, so I hope that was clear. Yeah. Tip number 3. Use the full text transcribed records at SOVA. I mentioned this earlier. They are doing a word for word text transcription. The project has been going on, 4 or 5 years. I don't know how much longer, but this is an excellent way to, if you're looking for a specific town, a specific parish, a specific county, to try to just go to something that has already been transcribed and see if you can just put in that name or that name of that town or name of that person and just to see what comes up, right? So when in the handout, I do show you how to get to SOVA. And once you get to SOVA, and as I say, they're working on full word-for-word transcription. And this is, you'll see, they'll actually tell you what records, and I'm sorry you can't see this, and I have a little schedule, so don't I'll call out, but you'll be able, I'm just showing that you'll be able to see what is what is fully transcribed and what is partially transcribed. And then if nothing next to it, nothing is transcribed yet for that series. So I have the information here, but this is a summary, and I hope this is a little better. And if you want, you could take a picture of this if this will help. But for example, headquarters, the registers and letters from the headquarters have been fully transcribed, as for example. The education records in Arkansas have been fully transcribed. The education records in Louisiana have been partially transcribed. For Georgia, the assistant commissioner records have been fully transcribed. So if Georgia is your area, you can utilize this to see if you can get some information. Tennessee and Texas, also the assistant commissioner information has been fully transcribed. So none of the field offices have been fully transcribed. There are several field offices, District of Columbia, Mississippi, and North Carolina have been partially transcribed. Okay, so again, this is just a little way to help if the transcription has already happened. This is a good way for you to get into it, right? And this is the search portal. I mentioned earlier that the National Museum of African American History and Culture has this search portal. So if it's fully transcribed for your area, just use this search portal to get that information. But you can also go to SOVA, but I'm just saying this is just another way for you to go to that information. I am going to say that this is the cream of the crop in regards to tip number 4, my last tip. Many of you may know that Family Search in 2024 at Roots Tech introduced full text research. And that's where they have an experiment where they, some of their historical documents, you can actually go there, you can select the collection that you want, and you can actually do a search using the full text search at familysearch.org. So you can enter names, keywords, dates, and that's something that you can utilize. Well, one of the databases or one of the type of records that they have added to these historical documents, they have now added the Freedmen's Bureau as part of this full text search. And it is, to me, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. And I know, again, everybody wants to tell you, and you should study again the descriptive pamphlet. I'm not saying not to do your homework, but I'm just saying if there's a way for you to scrub this information, let's utilize that. Now, this is AI. This is, it's not going to be perfect. There may be misspellings, maybe they may miss a letter here and there, but again, this is a way for you to get into the records. Okay? Cleveland, where you at? So I'm gonna, if you put in Noxubee, where some people love to say they're researching in Noxubee. And what I did, the link that I have here takes you directly to those records. Now, you either can follow the full text and actually it'll say which type of record you want. And you can say Freedmen's Bureau, or if you use the link that I have, it'll take you directly to that set of records within the full text search. So if you put in Noxubee as an example, I didn't put anything else, and there are 595 records that show up just by putting in Noxabee in the keyword search. Okay? So again, this to me is a game changer. This is where I start. I know I have to look at everything, but this is where I start. And this is where you can start. If this is something that's new to you and you want to get acclimated to those records, what you're trying to find, what is coming up for, I don't know, Kentucky, this is a way for you to introduce yourself to the information. So let's look at some samples here, because I know my time is almost up. In this first example, I wanted to give a little background. There were acts that were passed by Congress in 1864 and 1866 that allowed the slave owners to receive compensation if their enslaved person joined the U.S. military. Okay? The owners, again, slave owners, hear me here, would receive $300 for those that enlisted, and for those who were drafted, they would get $100. Okay? So I wanted to show, this is a record from slave owners. This is a letter that was sent of people, former enslavers, that were requesting their $300 for their formerly enslaved that enlisted. Okay, so I'm going to pull up closer, and I hope you can see that a little better. To the left, there is a J. Frank Newman, and he is the enslaver. He is requesting his claim for 3 formerly enslaved, Josiah, George, and John. Now, what's interesting, all of them have the surname of Hunt. Are they related? They could be. I don't know if this document doesn't say that, but that may be something that you're looking for. Again, if you are a Hunt, if you're possibly in Maryland, and I don't know, this may be a start. This may be somebody that you know. And then in this document, you would know who the last enslaver was. So again, this is how these documents can be used. This is another one. This is a document out of North Carolina. And George Page is saying that his sister is dead and that her 3 children, Catherine, Joe, and Addie, are facing mistreatment by an Ellick married. He's requesting, George's, that the indenture be canceled. Right? And so this is basically a court case that's in the records. So the court case was settled. They found that Merritt was not mistreating the children, but they did find that the indenture was illegal and it was canceled. This is I wanted to show this. This is a rations, and this is out of South Carolina. This talks about Margaret Moore, a 30-year-old white widow with 2 children under the age of 7. Her cousin, Hester Wilson, who is the age 16, is living with her. And it also goes on to say that Margaret lives near her father, who is named as Matthew Oates, and he lives nearby in Lake Swamp. Margaret is afflicted with rheumatism and was given rations for 3 days. But just look how much information from a genealogical perspective that was given. It names her father, doesn't name her children, but it names a cousin that's living with her. It gives a location of where her father lived. So not even her, just, her father. So this is again, some of the information, genealogical information that you can find. And this demonstrates not only the genealogical information, but that some of the information is not just about the formerly enslaved. Again, this is also about refugees who are white people. Okay? Now, this one is an interesting one, I thought. This is a transportation. We talked about transportation records, and this is where a mother has gone to the Virginia office in Petersburg, Virginia, and she is requesting that her two daughters, Susan and Sylvia, they call Sylvia Pink. I didn't put that in there, but her nickname was Pink. Give their ages, and their surname is Taylor. The mother's name is Katie Vaughan. Different surnames, but it identifies that she is their mother. And two different places. You're talking about South Carolina and Virginia, and so she is requesting that they be transported to Virginia. So that this is a letter to that office for that information. This is an interesting one, and we are almost done. So I'm gonna try to hurry up. This is a letter about a Charles William. He was owned the property, but during his enslavement, he actually acquired property, and his enslaver allowed him to have the property. The property, when she died, though, her nephew absconded with all of the money. One of the things that she had as property was shares in the Georgia Railroad. So this is a court case, and this is some of the documents, but it's basically him trying to get some money back. He won the ruling, and they were trying to find him to get the $1,000. This is quickly a dispute of a person, Preston White, and it's this dispute of who is the rightful wife. He had his first wife was Mary Jane White, and the owners, the slave owners, got into a dispute. So then that made that they could no longer be husband and wife. So then he took up with another woman, Margaret, and then after enslavement ended, he went back to his first wife. But Margaret is still saying, no, I'm the rightful wife. So I just thought this was an interesting case to include, and they ultimately recognized that the first wife was the lawful spouse. This is my last example. This is an interesting one where children were stolen while enslaved in Missouri. And they were stolen in 1864. It was 5 children. 4 of them were siblings. This is a letter that was sent in 1867 asking the Bureau to try to help find these children. Their father of the 4 that were siblings, and they're named here, was trying to get his children back. And it was just going to different offices. You see that this letter is being sent to different offices trying to see if they can find. There's no resolution that's in the Bureau records for this. So we've discussed an overview of the Bureau. We've looked at an approach in finding records. I've highlighted several tips that you can use to get to the records, and we've looked at some sample records. Now, even if the tips, even with these tips, know that indexing, including full text search, can have spelling errors. Don't be afraid to browse the records. Use various websites to get to the records. Always learn the historical timeline and events of your research area, and share what you find with others. You can contact me at EIT@gmail.com, and thank you. I have
2 minutes for questions.
Maybe there are no questions.
Tammy will be around.
Yes,
I do have a question.
yes.
I'm just curious with the Freedmen's Bureau. Apparently, it was not well received by a lot of people. You say that the office might be closed because they were killed or whatever.
So the question is, what was the popularity of the Freedmen's
Yeah.
Bureau? So, this was, I mean, it was a racially charged era. So if you're talking about the Freedmen's Bureau, for example, that was establishing a school, and they did not want the formerly enslaved to know how to read,
Yeah.
then in that area, the schools are going to end up, and that's what happened in my area. The schools, they were threatened. You can't, you won't be able to work. We're going to, burn down the school. We're going to, kick out the person who was coming from the north to work at the schools. So, I mean, the Freedmen's Bureau is a reflection of what was going on in the area. So there you can actually read more murders and outrages. So you can see, for example, what was going on. And that's part of what you need to know. You need to know what was going on in your research area.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more time, please.
My email address is IYATEE@gmail.com.